In our first story, the man talked about special prosecutor under the Akufo-Addo-led government is hoping will lead the anti-corruption charge and will be assured of a 7-year tenure. The security of tenure, according to Deputy Attorney General Joseph Penka, is critical as it will give the office holder the much-needed confidence and authority to prosecute without fear or favor of being removed from office by a government that feels threatened. At a stakeholders consultative meeting here held in Accra on the draft bill for the role, the Attorney General Gloria Kufo said that public and civil society organizations in Ghana will have the opportunity to make inputs. Matilda Homaga has more.
The Office of the Special Prosecutor is a campaign message by the MPP administration as a way of addressing corruption. Deputy Attorney General Joseph Penka explains the bill is expected, among other things, define modalities for the appointment and operations of the Special Prosecutor. In an interview with Joy News, he explained why the security of tenure is so important.
Unlike we have in the case of the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, who is hired and fired at the pleasure of the President, this will not be the case because the person is appointed for a period of 7 years. And within that 7 years, unless there's anything he has done contrary to what he's supposed to do, in which case processes such as the removal of a Superior Court justice will be triggered for the person to be removed from office. He cannot be hired and fired at the pleasure of the President. Because of that issue of security of tenure, it will be a spectacular guarantee for the person to be able to perform his functions without fear of removal or intimidation from any person.
Speaking earlier at the workshop, to seek input and recommendations into the first draft of the Special Prosecutor's Bill, Attorney General Gloria Kufo said additional inputs will be sought before it is passed into law.
Is to seek your valued inputs and recommendations on the first draft of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Bill as developed by my office. We are hopeful that your input and recommendations will inform and shape the development of the draft bill prior to its finalization and submission to Cabinet for its approval before it is laid before Parliament.
She called for dispassionate discussions to enable the creation of a truly independent office to deal with the public sector corruption.
We believe that the establishment of a dedicated anti-corruption office vested with investigative, prosecutorial, and asset recovery authority will result in an improved execution of our anti-corruption efforts rather than a continued reliance on multi-purpose or mixed mandate agencies. The objective of this stakeholders workshop.
The bill is expected to be laid before Parliament after it has gone through the consultative drafting stages among stakeholders. Meanwhile, some participants at the event, private legal practitioner and Vice President of Imani Ghana, Kofi Bento, says apart from the independence the Special Prosecutor is expected to enjoy, there is a need to ensure efficient management of the office.
We should be careful that as we legislate this security of tenure thing, we don't throw out effectiveness. And if we have security of tenure without effectiveness, there must be a way by which we remove that person and put somebody else in. And I think Parliament will be a very useful institution in doing that.
The Special Prosecutor's Office is expected to be functional within 6 months.
The minority in Parliament has described government's $15 billion deal with China as a huge risk to the economy. They say the move will result in unmanageable debt levels for Ghana, which will also stress out businesses. The Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia, announced on return from China over the weekend that the country will leverage its natural resources to get the money to finance developmental projects. The minority spokesperson on finance, Kaisala Tuforsen, told Joy News the country's economy, which is worth $42 billion with regards to GDP, cannot support such huge additional debt.
The simple question is, what is the size of Ghana as a country? Ghana's GDP is approximately 42-45 billion Ghana cedis. So they are giving us a debt equivalent to half of this country. Debt to GDP is about 72, 73%. So a debt that is going to increase our GDP, our debt by 50%. So debt is going to move from 72% to about 120, 130% of GDP. So Ghana is going to be HIPIC as a result of this.
Obviously, there's going to be a period of time, not a one-off transaction.
Regardless, you have to also look at economic growth over the period of time. It won't be that great. Whether it will come tomorrow or it will come the next day, this debt is a serious matter. It is going to plunge this country into era of debt distress. We are going to be very stressful as long as that is concerned, and we should be mindful.
They say they are going to leverage our natural resources, which then gives the indication that these amounts will be paid for even over duration that disbursement will be happening, because it's not as if they're now taking it to come do fresh investments, which will yield for them to pay back. They are leveraging our manganese, our bauxite, and exploring them and using them to pay for them.
Brother, don't let them deceive you with jargons. Leveraging, what is leveraging with natural resources? Are they not part of our revenue base already? This is a new revenue base we are going to see. Don't let them bamboozle you with words. What they will ask is that, how are you going to pay? They will need government of Ghana to provide them guarantees. That guarantee is equivalent to debt. In fact, when you are preparing debt sustainability analysis, the guarantees that government of Ghana provide in the form of sovereign guarantee will be equated as debt and be captured in debt sustainability analysis. So they should not bamboozle you with words that is going to leverage what? What are they leveraging?
And the minority in parliament is also demanding an immediate interdiction of the head or the managing director of the bulk oil storage and transport company, BOST, over a raging controversy about contaminated fuel being speculated to be on the market. They insist the circumstances under which some 5 million liters of fuel was contaminated and subsequently sold under what they call bizarre circumstances to a new company is dubious, and this has led to a 14.25 million financial loss to the state. Minority spokesperson on energy, Emmanuel Kufibwa, told a media briefing in Accra that the company that bought the BOST fuel, Movin Pina, has close ties with the current managing director of BOST, Alfred Obing, describing the transaction as a corrupt deal.
The minority in parliament has noted with grave concern the sale of contaminated fuel product to the tune of 5 million liters to a company known as Movipina by the MD of the Bulk Oil Storage and Transportation Limited under very dubious and bizarre circumstances, in another clear example of escalating corruption in the Akufo-Addo-Bawumia government. The evidence available confirms that Movipina company was the only company BOST dealt with in the sale of the contaminated product in a sole source transaction. This is very important. This is a company that has been preaching competitive bidding. We are here dealing with a company that was sole sourced, and that's very, very important. But what is more, and I think I'll get to that, it is therefore erroneous to suggest that sale was done under a competitive process. Further information available to us indicates that Movipina Company Limited put in a proposal to purchase the fuel on the 19th of May, 2017. Interestingly, checks from the Registrar General's Department suggest that the company was incorporated to trade and transport fuel on the 29th of May, 2017. Wow. So the company already won a 5 million liters when the company had not even been registered. This clearly suggests collusion on the part of the actors. Information available before us also indicate that the managing director took a decision to grant Movipina Company an open credit sales arrangement against all the advice from his own staff. Our check also indicates, the only thing we have is the regulatory institutions that will have teeth. We have information that the National Petroleum Authority, when they heard of this information, called BOST not to send any of these products to the market, but they basically ignored them.
And former Power Minister Dr. Kwabena Donkor tells Joy News there's also a danger ahead for road users as a result of the release of this contaminated fuel onto the market.
A part of this contaminated product, if not the whole, is already on the market because the regulatory body, which is MPA, was not in a position to mount surveillance on the movement of the products because their initial directive had not been adhered to. And when contaminated products gets onto the market, vehicle engines are impacted negatively. The confidence of the consumer in the quality of the products is also affected. If you buy a contaminated product, anytime you are going to buy product again, you are worried. Therefore, there are also psychological issues to do with this, the psychology of the consumer. The money issue is not even the most important. It is the impact on the psychology of the consumer. It's on the impact of the integrity of the whole petroleum distribution system. And particularly when it emanates from a state-owned enterprise, then it becomes even worse.
Is there an additional risk in terms of issues relating to road safety and how this could impact that, you think?
Yeah, engines, I mean, if a petrol engine or a diesel engine is using a contaminated product, the engine can stall. And assuming you are descending a steep hill and your engine stalls, the possibility of accidents cannot be ruled out. We pray it doesn't happen, but it's always a possibility.
In other news, schools for children with special needs are said to be reeling under great financial pressure due to delayed release of feeding grants from government. Authorities of, for example, the Garden City School, for special school in Kumasi say they are yet to receive any money from government. Assistant head teacher of the school, Joshua Utuabankwa, said management is compelled by circumstances to seek public support. Kwesi Debra has more.
Mr. Utuamankwa says suppliers are reluctant to give them food and other items on credit due to indebtedness to them. He says funding issues have compounded infrastructural and other challenges at the expense of teaching and learning.
Yeah, we have acquisition of teaching and learning materials has been a problem to the school. These students do not pay school fees. So everything comes from the feeding grant. And this feeding grant is not brought early. We are now in the 7th week, and it has not been brought from the government. So you can just imagine the stress we are passing through because these students do not pay school fees. So it's a problem. And also lack of infrastructure. If you look at this school, it serves the whole region. Yeah, so if you look at our facility, they are limited. So you want infrastructure expansion also.
Meanwhile, the Ahmadiyya Muslim Youth Association has reached out to the school with assorted food on the occasion of Eid al-Fitr. Ashanti Regional President Abdul Wahab Eduse draws public attention to obligations to the vulnerable in society.
God has categorically stated that all men are brothers. All men are brothers. And anyone who perceives another human being who is less privileged or less endowed in some aspect perceives that person as being below him is someone who is arrogant, and an arrogant person does not find favor with God. I think that the general public should come to the realization that it is only by grace of God that they do not face some of the challenges that these kids are facing. And so they should accept them as human beings, as normal people, and try to, fraternize with them whenever they can, and give, whatever help that they can give to them.
Reporting for Joy News, Kwesi Debra.
For the news, but I can tell you we'll have a lot more news. We'll be reviewing some of the newspapers. We'll have a couple of them in the studio, and then we'll look at some stories on the online portals, and thereafter we'll bring you some news. But before then, well, you can be the well, you can beat the clock, you can move a mountain, you can break rocks, you can be a master. Just don't wait for luck. Dedicate yourself, and you're going to find yourself. And the world really is going to know your name. And that's how we get that song from the script. And it featured Will.i.am And we know that we can bring you that song as an interlude before we bring you the newspapers. To stay on.